Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening for our Post-16 Options webinar for Year 11 parents and students. We're really glad that you can join us today. There's going to be lots and lots of information in this session from a number of different presenters, uh, and there's going to be a lot of options for you to consider. Remember that a few things, I think, as you listen to this webinar. Be open-minded, be open to different things that you might not necessarily have considered. Remember that this is a long process and that we've got a long time to make the right decisions and to get as much information as possible. And most of all, remember that the right pathway is the one that is right for you. And what might be right for someone that's, similar to you or a friend is not necessarily the one that's right for you. So I'd ask Ms. Devine-Costa if she could start the slides off and we'll start going through our webinar today. Thank you, Ms. Devine-Costa. Next. So what we're going to do today then is give a broad overview of the options process. That's me. Then you're going to have Mr. Michael Hirsch, who's our Head of Higher Education and Guidance Pathways. He's going to give some overview about the role of the careers team and what guidance they can give. And then we're lucky enough that we've got three excellent guest speakers today. Mr. Vine-Costa, who's head of DP, Mr. Collins, who is head of the CP program, and Mr. Hopley, who runs the extended engineering program. And then I'll finish off with just a little overview of what happens next and the options afternoon. Next slide, Mr. Devine-Costa. So as I said, we're part of a long process. This is the 11th of September now, where we're all sat in a webinar. After this, there's going to be a number of taster lessons available for students to have a little look at. And then we're going to have an options afternoon where we'd really like you to come into the school to discuss the pathways and think about the right options for you. And then those options choices need to be made by around the 9th of December. That's the deadline for the entry of those onto Wisdom. So I'd now like to pass over to Mr. Hirsch, who's going to discuss a little bit around careers and higher education.
So thank you for joining us, everybody. Just to start off with, we thought we wanted to introduce our team. So if you don't know yet, your children already are assigned a higher education counselor. Our team is made up of 4 people. So you see Miss Ghosh, she's responsible for the Han and Ming dynasties. I'm responsible for the Qing and Song dynasties, and then Miss Chung is responsible for the Tang and Yuan dynasties. We also have Miss Kalian who assists us. So if you phone into our office or you're trying to schedule an appointment to speak with one of us, you're going to be assisted by Miss Kalian. If you can go to the next slide, please. We just wanted to have some sort of kind of big idea reminders. As Mr. Riddle showed you before, there's going to be sort of a process to set people up in terms of really tuning in to thinking about what's going to be their best fit for their post-16 options. Because of timetabling requirements and staffing requirements, we are going to have everybody do those choices, initial choices, by I think it's December 9th. But I wanted to let people know that in second semester, typically in around February, you'll be meeting with your higher education and careers counselor to have a more detailed sort of revising type conversation. So it's really important that you take this process seriously now, because this is what we need to use in terms of sort of setting the timetable and doing our staffing model. But that has worked very, very well in the past because most people have a basic idea of the direction that they're going in, and that's pretty sufficient for that stage. So things will get fine-tuned a little bit later. When you meet with your higher education careers counselor, we are going to help you in terms of optimizing your chances at fulfilling your post-secondary aspirations. And so this is something that we do by talking to you about what colleges or universities you're interested in, what you want to study, what countries you're interested in, and then we sort of do a backward plan to help devise a pathway and a program of study that's best suited for your specific needs. One of the other things that's really important, specifically in the IB diploma program, is thinking about the rigor of your program and making sure that the rigor is in your right places. Typically, when we get offers, which is what we have for many of the countries where our students apply for university, these offers are conditional, and they may make reference to specific courses or they may make reference to specific levels. And so if a student has courses that are really challenging, that's part of their program that actually aren't related to their university applications, it can have a really negative impact on their ability to access certain university courses and pathways. And so we're going to have some pretty detailed conversations about those things to help make sure that each student's program is optimized. We need to be really careful too about, one of the things that I've seen a lot is this idea of something maybe being particularly overly ambitious, a sort of just in case type model. You think that you might be interested in being, for example, a engineer or a doctor. And so you take all of the courses that are required for both of those possible pathways. And as a consequence, you have a program that's so difficult that unfortunately you don't get scores that are appropriate for either one of those options. So we'll have some really good conversations about that to try to help make sure that everyone's on the right path. And then lastly, I think Mr. Riddle mentioned this already. It's really, really important that you have these detailed conversations with your counselors and sort of not just sort of subscribe to things that you're seeing on social media or things that you're hearing at parties or your neighbors and relatives and things like that, because the guidance that your child is going to get is going to be tailored to their very, very, very specific situation. And so we have students who have very similar aspirations, but because of different sort of variables in their profile, we actually might make different recommendations. And we do that with lots of experience. I have been involved with the International Baccalaureate Program and advising on DP course counseling since 2008. So I have quite a bit of experience in helping students plan ahead to what they need to be doing in post-16 to get onto the university course of their choice. With that, I will hand you back to the team.
I think it's me. So we just wanted to mention the IB Learner Profile. Steve kind of touched on this right at the beginning. As we go through some of the different pathways we've got on offer, we really need you to employ some of these attributes of the learner profile. Being open-minded this evening is a major one. You may come in already thinking that you know what you want your child to do or you know what's needed, but actually there's a lot more options out there and a lot more things to consider. We need people to be balanced in terms of the judgments that they're making. Sometimes our ambitions for our children are not what the children want to do. So we also need to communicate with our young people to make sure that we are listening to what their ambitions are and we're not kind of putting our own thoughts and perspectives on top of that and not actually considering what they want to do. And then through this whole process, there's a lot of inquiry, there's a lot of finding out of information that you and your children will need to do so that you do become knowledgeable and therefore you can make, good decisions as you move forward. It doesn't matter what pathway you take. Our students get excellent results. We're super, super, super proud of all of our students at West Island, and our post-16 students year on year get some excellent results. You can see this year's BTEC results there on the left. So over half of the students were getting distinction stars in their BTEC, which is the maximum grade that you can get. And those students very often are studying those BTEC courses in conjunction with IB subjects as well. And you can see the average score for those IB subjects is a 5. So our students that do one of our BTEC route pathways do really, really well in their BTEC, and they do really well on their IB courses as well. And then students that do the IB diploma, you can see here, getting some excellent, excellent results. This year's average point score was 37.6, which is, really, really high. So we're super, super proud of all of our IB students. And the diploma program covers a whole range of points. It's not an easy program. It's not easy to get up in the 40s. You can see the distribution here. And we have students that achieve right across the whole diploma spectrum. 24 is the pass, so 24 out of a possible 45. We also have students that get full marks, and we have everything in between. And again, as you're moving through, it's important to be realistic about where your child is going to be and what is a realistic target in terms of IB points as they then look to move forward into university. But I show you this just to show you that a typical cohort will get right across the whole spectrum of IB points. We've touched on this already, but before we launch into any specific details about pathways, you really need to think with your child about what is the best way for them to learn, because the pathways are very different. Over to the left, if you look at the IBDP, it's pretty much almost 100% exam. It's about 80% exam, and then most courses have about 20%, which is a coursework piece. But the vast majority is exam-based. There's usually 3 exams per subject, and the exam window for IB is very tight. It's basically a 3-week period. So some students will have 15 or even 18 exams within that 3-week period. It's incredibly intense, much more intense than the GCSE, which spans a couple of months. So that is a consideration, because if you're not someone that's particularly strong in an exam scenario, this may not be the best way for you to show what you can do. At the other end of the spectrum, on the right hand side, we have courses and pathways that are 100% coursework. So our BTEC programs are 100% coursework, ongoing assessment. There's a couple of controlled assessments where they can get less input from the teacher, but there's no kind of sit down in an exam hall and tell us everything that you can know and apply in 2 hours. So again, if you're somebody that really thrives on that kind of extended project work and demonstrating your talents in different ways beyond writing, because you might be doing presentations or group work and things, then perhaps one of those BTEC pathways is better for you. And then everything in between, as I said, some of the pathways like the CP combine BTECs and IB courses. Extended engineering is BTEC, so again, ongoing assessment, but usually the students will have things like maths and physics IB courses alongside. So it's all about thinking about what your best learning style is, how you can best showcase your talents, and so that you're going to access the best marks that you can. And of course, choosing subjects that you enjoy. So with that in mind, I'm going to just talk you briefly through the IB diploma. So on the left-hand side here, you can see it's IB courses only. So there's no other courses involved. And then afterwards, we'll talk to you about the IB career-related programme, which is that combination of IB courses and BTEC. Again, we get asked this a lot. Can I go to university if I do, pathway A or pathway B? The answer is absolutely. All of our pathways get to university. All of them can go to apprenticeships and places of work. So you don't need to worry about that. So the IB diploma is comprised of 6 different subject areas, 6 different groups. You can see them on the circle there. And students will take 1 subject in each of those 6 groups. Those groups are compulsory. 5 of them are compulsory. The elective group is the arts. So there are occasions where students don't have to take an arts subject, and in which case they can double up. It's usually in a science. It's very often somebody that is interested in studying medicine and needs to do something, or needs to do chemistry and bio, or maybe an engineering course where they need 2 of the sciences together, in which case you're allowed to let go of the art and double up there. Occasionally we get students doubling up in the INS subjects, which, if you're a little older like me, is humanities, history, geography, psychology, etc. But as a general rule, it's 1 subject from every discipline. And then in the centre, we have the core, which is theory of knowledge, which is a taught course here at West Island about the different ways of learning, where our knowledge comes from, how our knowledge is created, and looking at, things like what do we believe and why do we believe it, fake news, those kind of issues. That is an assessed course, so students have to do an exhibition, and they also have to do an essay, which is submitted to IB in kind of February time of year 13. Students also do an extended essay, which is a 4,000 word research project, independent research project. They're given a supervisor, but they can only meet the supervisor 3 times across the course of this production of the extended essay. And it's very much in the style of something they would do at university, a miniature dissertation, if that kind of resonates with you. And then CAS is something that's very familiar to us at West Island. The students continue to do CAS. Here it is a passing component of the diploma, so they have to show they've met the learning outcomes of CAS through the different activities that they take part in and the different service that they do. And again, they do some presentations and things along the way in order to meet those CAS criteria. We are blessed with lots of different subject choices. So the world really opens up when you move into post-16. You can see all the different choices that are on offer there. Students have to do 3 subjects at higher level and 3 subjects at standard level. As you might expect, at higher level, you're going into that subject in more detail. The content matter might be slightly more difficult to understand and work with. And those should really be the subjects that you, A, enjoy the most, and B, are potentially going to pursue as you move on to university. And then the SL subjects, a little bit simpler, a little bit less work, probably fewer exams as well, so it kind of balances itself out a little bit at exam time. Generally, higher and standard level is free choice as long as you've got 1 subject in every group. However, the languages is different. So IB rules are very clear about students' study of language. It has to be at what they determine appropriate level of challenge, which means it has to be a challenge for that student, and it should be something that they are progressing in, not something that they could just walk in tomorrow, sit the exam and do really well at. So for students who are doing a first language pathway at GCSE, they would be looking potentially at the language A option at IB, which is language and literary analysis. And they can do that at higher or standard level. So if they get in GCSE an A star or an A, they're going to be expected to move into that language A pathway. If they don't want to move into the language A pathway, they can do a brand new language. They can pick up an ab initio language, so French or Spanish, and start that fresh in the IB diploma. If they are doing a second language GCSE currently, then again, they would move into language B, but the level that they move into at has to be appropriate challenge. So as a general rule, if they get an A star in second language GCSE, they will move into higher level language B. If they get below an A star, then we would work with the student to look at whether it was higher level or standard level language B that they're moving into. Language B is learning a language as a second language, a language of acquisition. So it's not a language that is native to you, it's something that you are acquiring. It's a little bit complicated. The language teachers will be able to help students work their way through this in the coming months. The final option out there, just bear with me with languages, is if you have a first language that isn't taught at West Island. So we teach first language English and first language Chinese at West Island. If you have another first language, there is an opportunity to study that as a language A, either with the ESF Language Centre, Japanese, German, possibly there. There's a couple of languages that the ESF Language Centre can help with. Or if not, then you can get a tutor and we can work with the tutor to run it as a self-taught course. So if that does apply to you, there will be a handful of people out there that this might apply to. Please get in touch with us and we can start helping you explore whether that is a viable option or not. And language ab initio is, as I mentioned, beginner level language. So students that might be doing, for example, French GCSE, but don't want to carry on with it, they could switch and take ab initio or beginner level Spanish. And they mustn't have studied or have had very limited exposure to that language beforehand. So just to give you an idea of programs, these are some of our students currently and the things that they are studying. So I just tried to give you a range of different ideas. So Madeline on the left has got the classic diploma program combination. She's got 6 subjects and each of them is from a different discipline. Adam in the middle there, you can see actually he has not taken the arts elective and he's done global politics and economics, potentially because he wants to do something like international relations at university and has found that that's probably going to be more beneficial to him. Anson here towards the right hand side, again he doesn't have an art but he's doubled up in physics and computer science, again thinking ahead to his potential pathway. And then Talis is doing the bilingual diploma, so she's doing 2 language A's because she's doing Chinese language A and she's also doing English language A, so she will get a bilingual IB diploma. And again, that means she hasn't got the art in there because she's dropped that to be able to take the 2 first languages. So there's, again, lots of different combinations. The key thing is getting the right balance to kind of maximize the point score and also make sure you're enjoying it along the way. And as Michael mentioned, you know, we are talking to you about universities, we're talking to you about lots of things. Totally aware, and we are all totally aware that some people would be sitting out there thinking, I've no idea what I want to do when I go to university. That is also fine. There's plenty of students that come into the program not really knowing what they want to do, and we've got time to explore and discover that. And the main thing and the most important message to take away is to pick subjects and a pathway that you are going to really enjoy in the next 2 years, because sometimes we can become so focused on what comes after that that we forget that we've got 2 years in between, and we don't want those 2 years in between to be miserable and hard, because then success will not follow. But if students pick a pathway and a set of subjects that they're going to enjoy, then they're far more likely to succeed moving forwards. At that point, just quickly, this is a typical timetable. You can sort of see the number of lessons they get for each of the HL and SL subjects, lessons for TOK, and then lessons for core in a typical cycle. So that just gives you an idea as we compare the programs, how a timetable might start to build up. And then I think this is finally for me. There is an option for a minority out there who may be representing either Hong Kong or another nation at international level. So if you are a national team player in any sport, you may be eligible to apply for a 3-year diploma, which means that you can spread the exams over 3 years rather than 2. And the reason for that, and the teaching and learning as well, the reason for that is because if you're representing your country at that level, you've got a lot of training commitment, potentially a lot of international travel to competitions. So it's not possible to be in school all the time. So IB have an accreditation with the World Academy of Sport that allows the diploma to be spread over the 3-year period. Again, if that applies to you, get in touch with me. Miss Caldwell looks after our elite athletes. So if you're already working with her in year 11, have a chat to her about it as well. And then we can look at whether or not this would be beneficial for you. And I am going to hand over to Mr. Collins, who's going to talk you through some of our other pathways.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Not so nice to be back on Zoom, in all honesty. So I look forward to seeing hopefully as many of you in person when we have the event in November. Firstly, just a quick one. Obviously, there's a lot of information that goes on tonight. So you will notice there's the option for a Q&A. So if you want to fill in any questions as you go, anything that comes to mind, We've got our panel here who can be answering questions as we go along. So if there's any questions that are popping up, you don't have to save them to the end and anything like that. Just type them in and we'll answer them as best as we go. I did promise to try and keep this short, but the reality is I find that quite difficult, as any of my students watching can probably tell you. But I think that's mainly because I'm just so delighted that we're able to offer the IBCP at West Island School, and the success that we've enjoyed over the last few years and the growth of this subject area within a school has been so fantastic that it is just very easy to get lost and just talk about the options and what happens for the students, their success stories, what they study, what they're doing. You can get lost in it, and I will try my best to not do that. The IB CP is different to the IB Diploma Programme. It's the CP stands for Career Related Programme, and the focus is that students have the opportunity to undertake courses of study which are similar to potentially their next steps in terms of heading into university, going on to the field of work, apprenticeships, and that kind of thing. Now, the main partnership we use is BTECs. I know we have a ton of students in year 11 who are studying BTECs in media, digital design and engineering. I think it's about 111 registrations that we have. It's even more in year 10, so it's a real growth area for the school, and many of you will already be familiar with the process. So we're absolutely delighted that we can carry that qualification forward into the next steps. And as we step up into the world of post-16, as Ms. Devine-Costa mentioned earlier, our options do increase. So how does the IBCP work? Students start off and they can choose from 2 or 3 BTEC subjects. There's no requirement either way. It's entirely down to the preference of the learner. Digital design, business studies, multimedia production, sport qualification, engineering, and performing arts. For any students who are already thinking about this, and I know we've had several conversations already, in year 10 and 11, students could only do media or digital design. There was no option to choose both. Well, I'm really pleased to say that starting from this current year 12, students can study both of those subjects at post-16 level, which has been fantastic for so many students who are really specializing in that kind of creative area of the curriculum. Now, what I think really makes this stand out is that we have the BTEC pathway, which we're very secure with from our work in the lower school. For those of you who don't know, there is no formal examinations on a BTEC course. It is all assessed internally through coursework, where the students complete units of work. It might be in the form of an extended project. It might be something presentation focused. It might be coaching in sport, designing something in engineering, performance-based, whatever field, whatever's relevant to that field of study. This work gets marked by the students' teachers, and then it gets sent off for moderation throughout the course of the academic year. And that's very much a dialogue process. So we have fantastic moderation results year on year. I'm sure you saw the results at the start there, with 86% of students getting a distinction or higher, which was an amazing achievement. I'm not meant to brag, but I'm going to. It was a really awesome job by the teachers and the students, and I was so happy for everybody on that regard. So we have a very secure, very successful pathway. And then what really makes this unique is that the students can then choose 2 or 3 IB subjects, be it high level or standard level, from the whole range of IB courses. So it's a really unique proposition. So students can really cater to their own, their wants, their needs, their interests, their passions, and they can create almost a totally bespoke curriculum. If we have a student who's very interested in going into the world of design, they could pick up digital design, they could pick up engineering, they could do business studies, and they could combine that. They could combine that with looking at a subject like engineering, even at engineering. They could combine that with IB subjects like visual arts, which would complement the work in digital design. If they're interested more in the finance side of that, they could pick up economics. Students who are creative from a media perspective, maybe they want to combine business and media, and they're going to combine that with studying English, maybe psychology, to get an understanding of the way people think, and they can build a curriculum like that. Performing arts students can combine it with IB theatre. Sports students can study business management at IB. They could study food and nutrition alongside the sport course. I don't want to say the possibilities are endless, but it's pretty close with regard to school. And finally, we combine that with the IBCP core, which is similar to the core that we have on the IBDP curriculum. It's a set series of tasks, of lessons, of content that students undertake. So we have a course called Personal and Professional Skills, or PPS, where students undertake a wide variety of tasks, from kind of general life skills, getting them ready for the next steps, whether it be university or work, general improving their communication, think about how they present themselves, exploring real world issues and coming up with solutions. And that links very closely to community engagement. We always encourage the students to do CAS, but the focus of the CAS for our IBCP students is really doing something that supports a community. That community could be anything from a group of young students who are wanting to learn something new, to improve something, to getting out and helping in the local area. It could be working with a charity doing beach cleans. It could be organising food drives, anything that's within that realm of getting out and working with community and making a difference. We have the reflective project, which is a self-directed study assignment where the students can create a response, either written in terms of an essay, or they can create a podcast, a documentary, where they'll be looking at an ethical issue, which is relevant to one of their future career goals, and also language and cultural studies, which again is a non-assessed course where students develop a sort of a deeper interest in a language. Maybe they've always wanted to study a certain language, or there's a culture that particularly interests them, and they study that period. In terms of the core and external assessment, because as I said, a big advantage of the BTEC course is the lack of external assessment. The assessment within the IBCP core is through the reflective project that's marked externally. Everything else is done through internal portfolios. There's a lot there. There's a lot of options. That was a lot of information. So I would say just it's worth taking time if you're thinking about this approach and looking at the subjects. You can always contact me for information, everything like that. But as Mr. Rudel said at the start, this is a long process. I did want to mention, just before I move on to the next slide, in terms of pathways and the next steps. Actually, we can go to the next slide. It's more relevant to that. Thank you. Where is the BTEC accepted? The UK, it is a UK-based exam board. It's the most popular in the UK. It certificates over 1 million learners each year. So again, it's very secure in terms of its recognition. Over 95% of UK universities accept students with BTEC qualifications. This includes the Russell Group, but it goes much further than that. The United States, Canada, Australia, and Europe all accept BTEC students. We do on occasions work more closely with the students and with our fantastic careers team in order to make sure that we're very confident in where the students can go. But we currently have students from our cohort that just graduated our digital design class, where we had 11 scholarships offered, and we've got students who are undertaking scholarships from Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom as well. So that's been an incredible reflection on the work that those students created, and ultimately the curriculum that we've created. So the biggest question we often get asked is about acceptance for the IBCP. It's still relatively new in the grand scheme of the International Baccalaureate, but we're very confident with the recognition. And I said, we've got a wonderful careers team who will start working with the students from this year and making sure that we are 100% happy and satisfied and confident with the pathway that the students are on. So, you know, we have students in every corner of the globe. I won't reel off a big list, but you don't need to worry about our faith in the qualification of the IBCP in terms of its acceptance. Just some example programs. I think I said I need to put some of these scholarships on, but I'm only receiving the news week by week as the students are making their way off to university in different corners of the globe and sending us update emails or popping into Whiz almost. It seems like they're on the way through to the airport. So we're currently updating a lot of our case studies so you can see where our students are heading off. And we actually also collaborate all of our data across the whole of ESF as well. So we have a very broad picture of destinations for our students, what they can go on to study, whether it be, you know, some fantastic courses here, going on to study Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, a fabulous university, Loughborough, Central Lancashire, University of Central Lancashire, all fantastic institutions, and getting in there for the strength of the BTEC qualifications and with their IB qualifications as well. So a typical timetable, the students are busy. For every BTEC course they study, it will equate to 5 lessons on a current timetable cycle, which is the same as a higher level IB subject. For those of you who are familiar with the UK education system, the BTEC qualification is regarded in the same breath as an IB qualification. And for those that know the A-level system, again, the BTECs are matched up perfectly against an A-level. So the distinction star grade on a BTEC would be the equivalency of an A star on an A-level in terms of the volume of UCAS points. So especially for students who are looking at UK-based destinations, the number of UCAS points you are potentially accessing through doing 2 or 3 BTEC subjects is really quite impressive. And then when we layer in the IB, maybe taking on a subject at a higher level and 1 at standard, or maybe, you know, if you're doing 2 BTECs, 3 IB subjects, there's a real opportunity to have a really wide breadth and quality to not only the education experience, but also those outcomes. Again, you know, not meaning to go back over results, but we really did see a fantastic performance from our IBCP cohort last year, which honestly just gives me the conviction and furthers my belief that we're absolutely right to be offering this pathway to the students, because we know that students who come onto the IBCP are being a huge success, and that's really awesome that we can offer that. The rest of their timetable is made up from the core there you can see with PPS, language, cultural studies, and a enjoyable session with me where we look at the reflective project, as well as giving an opportunity to keep an eye on the students, have chats with them, make sure that everything's going okay. We do offer another pathway as well. We have 2 more, one which I'll hand over to Dave probably too shortly to talk about. But we understand as well that for some students, even the IBCP, maybe it's elements of the core, the you know, the self-directed elements, maybe with the reflective project, or just having to undertake and, you know, with a set number of IB qualifications, that might not be for every student. So we've got a course which we've coined as the International Diploma. So the International Diploma, if you thought there was a lot of freedom on the IBCP, there's probably even more when it comes to the International Diploma. So again, there's optional IB subjects, so full suite available. You're not capped at a minimum number. You don't have to do at least 2. You could do 1 IB subject. You could do 3. It really depends on the student. For the BTEC pathway, we recommend taking 2 or typically 3. We find this year a lot of our students are taking on 3 BTEC subjects. And then we combine that where, in lieu of studying the CP core, we have an extra qualification called the EPQ, which is an extended project qualification. It runs, again, from Pearson in the UK. It has a university attachment in terms of UCAS points. And again, it's where students can choose an area of interest, and they can research this, they can create a project on this and really follow a bit of a passion project. So it adds a really nice balance to the curriculum alongside the BTEC course of study. And see some students there, some of our recent graduates that have gone on studying international sport, combine that with business, a really nice combination there. And maths HL, as Sean, he's off at the University of Leeds, which is a great institution, studying sports and exercise science. We've had students, Isha, studying business, and combine that with performing arts, and then following her passion for dance, and also bringing in ESS, which again was a real passion for the students there. So is now studying off in Malaysia. And also we could see Rusha there and Ryan, so at Loughborough University, and apprenticeship in motorsport, and Rusha studying education at the University of Leeds off the back of these qualifications. So again, the breadth of options available to students off the back of these pathways is something which is really quite impressive. And again, I'm just really happy that we're able to offer this for all of our students. And much like the IBCP, the timetable will follow the sort of the measure with the number of HL or standard level subjects, as well as 5 hours allocated per BTEC subject. The EPQ, and also we do give the students a more dedicated support session. So it might be small groups working with a teacher. It could be anything from 3 to kind of 8 of them in a room, and just making sure that they're staying on top of meeting their deadlines and staying on top of the objectives. So just another layer of support we're able to offer to our students there. So I will hand over to Dave Hopley, who can lead us into the world of engineering, which again is an area which is completely unique to West Island School across ESF. And if you have any questions, please do just drop a message in the Q&A, or you can shoot me an email. My contact information is on the school website. And I look forward to seeing you all in school. Thank you.
Evening, folks. I appreciate you've been talked a lot at this evening so far, so I'll try and be short and concise. West Island's pretty lucky in the fact we've got this unique pathway, which is an extended BTEC engineering course. It's a 3 A-level equivalent, or also 3 higher level IB subject equivalent. If you remember back to Miss Devine-Costa, she mentioned that students studying the IB pathway do 3 higher levels and 3 standard levels. So the BTEC alone is the equivalent of 3 higher levels. And then what typically happens is students then select a couple of IB subjects. Now, typically what complements an engineering course is obviously AA mathematics at higher level IB and physics at higher level IB. We have also had students doing computer science instead of, but one student last year actually managed to do a standard level in computer science, as well as maths and physics at higher level. So anyone that is good at counting numbers will realize that if you do the extended IB and you get a 7 in your maths and a 7 in your physics, you actually get the equivalent of 5 higher levels. So that's the equivalent of 5 A levels. Now in the UK, most people do 3 A levels, and the IB would be the equivalent of 4.5 higher levels. This student who did the computer science as well at standard level actually walked away with 5.5. So in easy money, that's more UCAS points than 45 points at IB, even if you get 7s, obviously, in all those subjects. So those are the caliber of students we're getting. You've got to really have a passion for the subject. You obviously want to know that's where your skill sets lie. It's a lovely way of learning because we have subject specialists teaching the mathematics units, the engineering maths unit, sorry. We have subject specialists teaching microcontrollers. We have them teaching electronics and the physics, CNC machining, so computer numerically controlled machining, and CAD. So all very, very high level stuff that feedback from our students going off to uni has been exemplary in the fact that they're all telling us that they're 2 years ahead of their peers at university. And that's whether they're studying traditional engineering like mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, but we also have environmental engineering. Some students go on to study computer science at amazing universities like St Andrews. We have them go off to do unrelated things to engineering, such as physics. And I think the key is engineering gives them the skill sets that a lot of people are wanting, especially this day and age with AI in everyone's minds. We're kind of future-proofing the students. That last slide there is actually industry links. So again, the joy of this course is we get to learn by working with industry. So we've got a amazing contact, TTI, which makes some of these machines, power tools, home equipment, where we get to go and visit factories up in China. We get to go to their design offices. We can talk to their HR departments, their business people, their engineers, their designers, their prototypers. So it contextualizes the learning. So if the students are passionate, they know what they want to do. They might not necessarily want to do a literature or a language or an art. This is a fantastic pathway option. Next slide, please, Miss Devine-Costa. Is it popping up yet? Again, as Tim mentioned, any questions, feel free to put them in the question bank. That picture that we just saw was actually some of the visits to the factory, some of the visits to the design offices. Student down in the bottom right-hand corner works for Caterpillar now, doing forensics on huge machines. Some of my students had the honor to talk to him, and they were pretty excited that there was a bunch of Lamborghinis in the car park, and engineers can earn that kind of money these days. So, and I think the bottom left there was one of my goosebump moments as a teacher was my 17, 18-year-olds were having conversations with engineers who were like 30 years in the profession, using the same language, same terminology, sharing ideas. We were all equals. So, yeah, amazing opportunities for the students. And that last slide, please, Helen. This is 3 previous students. Ed, as I said, went off to St Andrews to do computer science, so you don't need to worry that you're pigeonholed if you're doing an engineering course. I think most people will realize St Andrews is one of the very best at computer science. And again, you can see that combination where he's done maths and physics HL. Aurelian went off to do energy engineering at Loughborough. We've got a good few students in Loughborough doing aeronautical, mechanical, electrical, and energy engineering, obviously, of the moment. And again, with the same combination. Jonas there went down a different pathway. He went into the world of work straight away. So he was working on super yachts, doing carbon fiber layups and fiberglass. And a couple of others worth mentioning. As I say, one of my more recent students is actually was the one that got the 777 and distinction star, distinction star, distinction star, and is also doing mechanical engineering at Bath. So a really good pathway for those that have a passion and kind of know what they want to do, or sometimes know what they don't want to do as well. And I think that's me done. Yeah. So that's typically a combination there. So extended engineering obviously takes up a huge part of the timetable. And then depending on the options for higher level and standard level, you can see those combinations there. EPQ is an option, and there's support lessons available. I think worth mentioning at this point, one of my maths colleagues who teaches the 3 engineering maths units has said that he really favors this course because the students get more time to build on their passions. So even if their strength isn't in maths and physics, they've got a little bit more time to focus on those. And then if they're doing HL maths at IB, that complements perfectly the maths that they're doing at BTEC Extended. And I think that's now me done. And people can start counting down to dinner, but I think there's maybe just a rounding off. Is that me done?
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I think that's you. Oh, a weird little thing on the screen. I think there's a bit of a satellite delay between Braemar Hill and Llama when these slides go up. So you've heard lots and lots of different information about different pathways. I put these slides on just to kind of reassure people that, again, our students take all different sorts of pathways. So typically in a year, we'll have 75 to 80% of students do the diploma, and then 20 to 25% do one of our other pathways. And actually, very often, the students end up at the same destinations or doing very similar courses. So you can see here 3 students who've each done one of our different pathways, diploma, career-related program, or the international diploma. And all of them have ended up at university doing sports science. And actually 2 of them, so Giro and Orla, ended up at the same university on the same course in the same year of admission, despite the fact that they'd done different post-16 pathways. So it really is about choosing the pathway, the post-16 pathway that is right for you as a student, because that then allows you to go on to the university pathway of your choice. If you do want to find out more, then we have a website. I think Steve might jump back on to just talk us through the last few bits. We're just finishing updating all the website, and we will send out some information once that's available. But there is in-depth information on all the courses. There's a little video about each course. There's written information, and then there's other information relating to higher education and lots of things on there. So it's definitely something that is worth exploring, so that you can come into some of the later sessions more informed and ready to ask the right questions. Steve, do you want to jump on from here?
Thanks, Helen. Yeah, so just a little bit more on that website. So all the year 11s studying Learning for Life at the moment are doing two things. They're looking at Unifrog, which is a program that Michael and his team use to start thinking about higher education pathways. So it's worth having a talk to them about what they've been looking at in Unifrog. And they've also been looking at the post-16s options website. So they will be starting to think about that now, and it's really worth starting those conversations now pretty early about what they're thinking and why they're thinking what they're thinking. Next slide, Helen. So same slide as at the beginning, but just a reminder then that we're sort of very early in this process. It's not the time to make choices now. It's the time to start thinking about what you're interested in. And then finally, next slide, Helen. We look forward to bring you all into school, if possible, on the 3rd of November. We're going to run our options afternoon. If any of you have children who are in year 12, just slightly differently to how we ran it last year. It's going to be on a Monday afternoon, and it will run from 3 until 6 p.m. Between 3 and 4, we've got a couple of our subject areas that have really world-class facilities. So design and what Dave was saying about engineering, want to bring parents in to show facilities off, and the same with the arts faculty as well. They want to show off the art faculty and year 11 students doing coursework at the time. If you're not necessarily considering the arts, or you aren't available around 3 p.m, then the afternoon starts at 4 p.m. There'll be a little talk, just a sort of discussion about a few different aspects of the different programs, and then an hour and a half to talk with subject teachers, heads of faculty, really get into depth in terms of the subjects and courses that you and your child are thinking are best. So that's the plan, and there'll be a lot more communication about that closer to the time. And then finally, Helen, I think we're done, aren't we? Just a sort of overview of the year ahead for your year 11 student. So they have their year 11 mocks in October. That's maybe a good indicator of some of their strengths. But again, I think I said in the webinar last week, the purpose of the mocks is practice. So it's practicing things like being in an exam environment, practicing revision for lots of exams. So we don't put everything, all your weight on the mock exams. We've then got early December where decisions will be made. Then between January and about March, your choices will be reviewed by the HE counsellor. You'll be having parent meetings with them. And then between April and June, we've got the IGCSE exam. So by that point, choices should be pretty much made, and we should have a really firm idea about what the post-16 pathway that is right for your child they're going to take. Helen, next slide. I think that's it. Is that it?
Yes, I think.
So it just leaves me to say thank you very much for coming and listening. I know that is an awful lot of information to take in 55 minutes. This will be shared with you, I think on YouTube, probably emailed out tomorrow. If there are any questions, please get in touch with anybody that you've seen in this panel today, or the subject teachers themselves. They're really, really willing to share any information, any questions you have about their subject. So thank you again, and I hope you have a very good evening.